Breakthrough products break right through walls of controversy and politics and volatility.
After a year of controversy and extreme volatility, Tesla is starting to see a turnaround.
We are going to go absolutely vertical when Optimus does launch and scale.
Luke Lango with InvestorPlace shares just how explosive the robotics rollout could be for Tesla stock.
Over $1 trillion in hardware revenue alone.
He's also researching the other companies that could benefit from the Optimus launch in the next 2 years.
We're making the supply chain now. Whoever gets put into the supply chain today becomes a supplier for the next 20, 30 years for this massive growth story.
Will the future growth potential be enough to get retail investors back into the stock with tons of volatility? Let's dive in. Luke, so great to have you on the show talking about Tesla. We have not talked about this stock on this channel for a little while now, but there is a lot happening with Tesla right now. Even the stock saw a nice little pop yesterday, at least. Let's talk about what's moving the stock right now.
Yeah, Tesla stock's been, it was the hottest stock ever right after the election, and everybody was FOMOing into it, and you had that massive rally, and then your round trip back to where it was before the election. But yes, now it's starting to come back in a meaningful way, and I would say the driver of that rally, well, two drivers. One is robotics. I think Tesla Optimus project is making a lot of big forward steps. You're also seeing a lot of big forward progress in the whole humanoid robotics industry globally. And then number two would be their efforts in autonomy and in self-driving. They launched their autonomous ride-sharing network in Austin, Texas. Some hiccups to get started, but there's always hiccups to get started. But largely pretty good. Expanding to San Francisco, looking to expand to multiple cities. I think Elon's targeting 50% of the U.S. Population will be able to have access to Tesla self-driving features by the end of this year. So that's rapid ramp. So I would say those two drivers shifting away from the EV business, that's why Tesla stock is coming back to life a little bit.
Yeah, this stock has had so much volatility this year especially. Do you think the reasons for all of that volatility, some of the feuds, political feuds and other things like that, are old news for Tesla, or is that still a part of the potential risk for this company?
Yeah, I would say it's very much relevant news still for the electric vehicle business. I think Tesla cars have been branded politically, and there's just a big divide amongst them. You buy a Tesla car now, it's like, oh, I know who you voted for, right? It's like it's very political, and I don't think that goes away overnight. I don't think that goes away over the next 12 months, maybe even 2 to 3 years. I think that takes a while for that stigma to fade. But I don't think that matters for the stock, because I increasingly believe the value here is not being driven by that I'm going to call it old electric vehicle business. It's being driven by what the future holds with robotics and autonomy. And I don't think there is branding there. That yes, Optimus will be made by Tesla, but I don't think Optimus is going to have a political stigma attached to it, because it wasn't around when the political stuff was going on. There is no consumer Optimus product right now. There will be in 26, 27, but by then the stigma is going to be wearing off, and no one's going to attach Optimus with politics. Self-driving Teslas, maybe a little bit right now, but it's so small again, it's not really relevant to the business in the next year or two. When it becomes relevant, the stigma will have worn off. So I think, yes, it does matter, that core EV business, but in my viewpoint, the value of this company is not in that. It's in the other two vectors. And in those vectors, I don't think the political stuff or any of the volatility related to Musk and all his tweets and whatnot impacts those businesses at all. Because you have to remember, too, Tesla was very, very, very controversial, and Musk himself was very controversial back in like 2017, 2018. Remember, he had that whole like calling the diver a pedophile thing. Like he's had a long history of doing crazy, weird stuff. But at that time, they launched the Model 3, and the Model 3 was such a breakthrough product, so awesome, and an affordable electric vehicle that is very capable, high performance. Nobody cared that Musk called somebody names on social media. They bought the Model 3, and the Model 3 sent the stock up thousands of percent. Optimus is going to be the same thing. That's my viewpoint. Breakthrough products break right through walls of controversy and politics and volatility.
That's a really great point, Luke, that the product speaks for itself, even
Right.
if there is still any kind of clouds of speculation over this company. I do want to talk a little bit more before we move on to all of the different products in robotics that Tesla has a really big advantage in some areas. One of the big things a lot of investors were concerned about when he was working in the White House was taking too much time away from the company. Do you think his focus and his time is really back on research and development and really helping to get Tesla to that next phase for robotics and for other parts of the company?
Yes, I mean, he made that abundantly clear in the last quarterly conference call. My time has shifted. I am no longer focused on government stuff. I am focused on Optimus. I am focused on self-driving. He set out aggressive goals for ramping both of those things. 1 million units in Optimus within 5 years. Again, half of the U.S. having access to Tesla Autonomy by the end of this year. He's all in. He's all in again, and that is obviously a huge positive for the stock because as goes Elon, so goes the company. I think it's a really important thing to point out is I'm a big believer that everything starts with great people. Great people build great products. Great products make great businesses, and great businesses make great stocks. It all starts. Step one is great people. And I think Elon Musk, love him or hate him, however you view him, he is an inspirational figure to a lot of very technically savvy individuals. So when he is all in and he is hyper focused on, I am going to make humanoid robots and they are going to change the world. I am going to scale self-driving to everybody and it is going to change how the world views transportation. When he is all in on that message, all in on that theme, it attracts a lot of really talented people to help him achieve that vision. And so one of the reasons Tesla was so successful in 2018, 2019, 2020 with the ramp of the Model 3 is because he had a vision, he had a dream, and a lot of really talented engineers. I remember I was graduating from a top tech school at that time. A lot of my friends from MIT or Caltech, they were going into Tesla. Like that was the hot job to have because it's like, I'm going to change the world, right? That's what young people want to do. They want to change the world. And so now with Elon back all in on robotics and autonomy, I think, the graduates these days, they want to change the world. And the top graduates are, I think, going to flock to a man and a business that has a vision to do that and had track record of successfully doing it as well.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue into what we really want to talk about in this video, and that's how much robotics are going to change the world. A really great way that you said that. We had another guest on the channel just last week talking about robotics and how this is really the next phase of AI. And this really is where all of that explosive growth is going to happen right now. I know this is something you and your team have been researching at InvestorPlace, really looking at the different companies that are just hitting the market to really create the robotics industry from the ground up. We'll talk more about this later on, but you really have an awesome new report out that's specifically talking about some picks and shovels plays that could see explosive growth as the robotics industry rolls out over the next couple of years. You can scan the QR code now or click the link in the description if you want to learn more about Luke's research now. Again, we will get to some of it a little bit later on in this video. But Luke, for now, let's get back to the robotics race and all of the money and investment going into research and development to really launch this new industry. Right now, if you look at US headlines, it seems like Tesla is really the leader in this.
Yeah, so I call this wave the physical AI wave. It's when AI gets physical. AI comes into the real world. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang also calls it the physical AI wave. The first wave was kind of just these perception models that could understand what's going on but not really respond. That was like the mid-2010s. Then with ChatGPT, we got the LLM era. So you had these large language models that were actually very capable of doing things. Now we're in the agentic AI era. So now these LLMs are becoming, and SLM, small language models, are becoming autonomous and doing things autonomously, doing tasks autonomously. We are in the agentic AI era. Next up, and I think we enter it in 26, we're kind of already entering it right now, is that physical AI era. It starts with warehouse automation. So warehouse robots going around automating factories like Walmart's fulfillment centers and Amazon's fulfillment centers. Amazon has 1 million robots globally in their fulfillment centers. Walmart's automating all of their warehouses with technology from a company called Symbotic, one of our favorite robotic stocks. SYM's that ticker. So it started with warehouse automation. Now it's getting to self-driving cars. And the culmination of physical AI, of course, is the humanoid robot. And so that's where we're going. And we are seeing successful demonstrations of humanoid robots a lot in China. There's a company called Unitree over there. People don't understand this really, but you can buy a household robot, a humanoid robot in China for $6,000. Like if you live in China, China. You can apply to buy a Unitree R1 robot for $6,000. It can come to your house and you'll have a humanoid robot in your house for $6,000. Sounds like science fiction. It's already happening in China. So there's a lot of really cool developments happening here. They just had the first World Humanoid Robotic Games where humanoid robots were competing in Beijing in soccer matches and marathons and track and field events. Yeah, there's a lot of really fun stuff happening, and it all sounds kind of quirky and useless right now, but everything starts out as quirky and useless, and then it finds use. And that's where we're going. We're going towards that finding use and then massive value extraction.
Yeah, I don't think I consider, a household robot as quirky or useless. I think somebody who can watch the dishes and do the household chores and things like that. There's so many use cases for humanoid robots in the future. I know there is some fear surrounding them as well. A lot of people worry about what this means for jobs. What kind of change will this mean for the world? So there is that side of robotics too, but investors looking to really get that next major growth story like we saw in AI are starting really to look at robotics. Do you think that Tesla is a leader in this area, or is there just so much competition? There's a really crowded field right now that Tesla isn't necessarily a leader, just maybe a more talked about company with robotics?
I would say Tesla is the hardware leader in the United States. China is ahead of us in physical AI. I think we have to admit that. I think if you're looking at the China versus US AI race, there are a lot of things the US is better at. China is right now far, far superior at robotics, especially humanoid robotics. Their companies like Unitree are not years ahead, but multiple quarters ahead of where any US company is. And so I think that should create an urgency in America. I think it should become a government priority even to really, really accelerate humanoid robotics development here in this country. And I think you were starting to see that actually. We talk about that. I think you're starting to see a little bit of government urgency to support this industry. But yes, I do think Tesla is the hardware leader here in the United States. The actual construction of the robot involves Tesla making hardware. NVIDIA is the brain still. They have a new thing called Jetson Thor that just launched. I think it may have been just a few days ago, which is a new humanoid robotics AI software system designed to essentially allow these robots to move more freely in environments, make less mistakes, have better perception. Jensen Huang is all in on that. So NVIDIA is involved in the software side of things, but they're teaming up with Tesla on the hardware side of things. That's a winning combination for, the US robotics theme, if you will. So yes, I do think Tesla is the hardware leader here. Nobody else really is making humanoid robots at the scale that they are in the United States, and nobody's working with NVIDIA as closely as they are to make these robots a flawless reality, if you will.
Yeah, the NVIDIA connection is a big deal, especially this week during NVIDIA earnings week. Let's talk a little bit about how much of valuation you think the robotics side of Tesla's business could add to this company. Is any of that priced into the stock yet? Or do you think that the stock price is really not reflecting how big of a market these humanoid robots could be for Tesla?
The stock price reflects some optimism about the robotics business growing, but it does not price in the outcomes yet. If you think about, okay, there's maybe 2 billion households in the world. Let's say half of them get a robot at scale. That's a billion. And the robots sell it at $20,000 a pop. I mean, you're adding tens of billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue just off of, household adoption. And household adoption is small fish here, right? The real adoption is corporate adoption. How many robots is Amazon going to buy? How many robots is Walmart going to buy? Home Depot, right? Are they going to replace customer service in aisles with humanoid robots or things like that? These are very potentially real outcomes. So you could get tens of millions of businesses, our estimates maybe like 70 to 80 million businesses buying dozens of these robots. That adds up. That could get to trillions in revenue. So there really is a pathway here for, I would say, over $1 trillion in hardware revenue alone of Optimus robot sales to homes and businesses. And even that's the smaller side, because I would assume the way the business model is going to work, the same way the self-driving business model works, is you buy the car, and then you have to buy the software package that powers the autonomy. Well, you buy the robot, then you got to buy the AI software package that powers the autonomous features of that robot. So let's say that goes at $100 a month at 12 months, 90% attach rate there. Then all of a sudden you're shipping out hundreds of millions of robots a year, and 90% of them are now attached with software that's going to be a recurring revenue stream. $100 a month, 12 months a year, at what, 90%, 95% gross margins. So then we're really flowing through to the bottom line. So you can really see, yes, it's maybe pie in the sky math, but if there's anybody that can make pie in the sky math become a reality, it's Elon Musk. You can see a pathway towards this becoming a multi-trillion-dollar business on the top line and potentially a multi-hundred-billion-dollar business on the bottom line. For a company like Tesla, that's market cap is less than a trillion, right around $1 trillion. You add several $100 billion to that bottom line, you put a 20x multiple on that. I mean, you're talking maybe another trillion, 2 trillion, 3 trillion in valuation unlock. It's big. It could be massive, massive.
And that is a really big potential growth story for this stock. But I don't think we've seen that yet in the price, like you said. I want to talk about if you think now is a good time to get into Tesla. And if you think getting into Tesla now still means get ready for a lot of volatility. The stock has historically had so much volatility. So, kind of a two-part question. Is now a good entry point for Tesla? And do you think if you do get in now, that there's still going to be an expectation for volatility?
Yes, I would say the answer to that question, two parts, yes and yes. Though if you look at the history of Tesla stock, it does not move upward. You look at the long-term stock chart of a lot of companies, maybe like Microsoft or whatever, and it looks like, a nice kind of uptrend. That's not Tesla's chart. Tesla moves in what I call stepwise manner. So it'll go nowhere for 3 to 4 years, and then it'll go vertical for a year or two, absolutely vertical. Then it goes nowhere for 3 to 4 years. Then it goes absolutely vertical. We've seen two absolutely vertical moves in the last several years. The first was in the early to mid 2010s when they finally launched the Model S. And it was like, oh, wow, this is a real car that actually works. It's electric. There's demand for it. It's good. Everybody doubted that Elon could do that from 2011 to like 2012, 2013. And then he did it. And then boom, the stock went absolutely vertical. Then it flatlined in the late 2010s because everyone's like, oh, they're never going to get the Model 3 going. It's never going to happen. They're going to go bankrupt. I remember all the big Wall Street firms are writing, Tesla's going bankrupt. Oh, what's the cash flow this quarter? Like every quarter it wasn't whether or not they're going to hit their delivery numbers, it's whether or not they're going to go bankrupt, right? Like that was a discussion back in 2017, 2018. And then guess what? They successfully ramped the Model 3 and the stock went absolutely vertical. Now we're in a sideways consolidation period again. And I think it's, all this doubt about Optimus, all this doubt about autonomy. Well, guess what? I think Elon's once again is going to prove the quote unquote haters wrong. And we are going to go absolutely vertical when Optimus does launch and scale, when these autonomy efforts really do turn into money for the company, which I think happens in 26. We're going to go absolutely vertical. So I would say we are in the seventh or eighth inning of a consolidation period that will end soon and turn into a very sharp vertical move higher for the stock. So yes, I do think it is a good time to get into Tesla stock if you have a 2 to 3 year time horizon. But I also think, to the second part of your question, the eighth and ninth inning of the sideways consolidation, that could be very choppy because it was back in 2017. It was back in 2013. That's just kind of how it is, right? Before it's always darkest before the dawn. I think that this eighth or ninth inning could be pretty choppy, but it will be choppy right before a massive vertical move higher that takes the stock to a permanent new high.
Really great time information for investors out there to consider, that 2 to 3 year time span for when you really will see the growth, and then also expecting a lot of volatility in the few months to come before that happens. Great advice. Thank you for breaking that down. I really want to get into now of not just Tesla, but when you have this kind of explosive growth potential for humanoid robots really launching commercially across the whole country, the world in the next couple of years, it's not going to be just Tesla that benefits, right? There's other parts, components, the picks and shovels parts of these Optimus robots that could also benefit. I think that's a really unique area for investors to be looking at right now. And I know that's some research that you've been looking into too.
Yeah, to me, that's the more exciting part of this story. Tesla stock, I think it can have an absolutely vertical move over the next 2 to 3 years. But as big as that move will be, I think it'll be dwarfed by some of the moves you see in the quote unquote robo supply chain. Because the reality is, and Musk has said this on conference calls, there is no established supply chain for humanoid robots because there are no humanoid robots out there right now, really. Like there are a few. But because there are no humanoid robots at scale, there is no humanoid robot supply chain. So he has to go out and make it the supply chain. And what that creates is a really compelling investment opportunity for people like us. But hey, We're making the supply chain now. So whoever gets put into the supply chain today becomes a supplier for the next 20, 30 years for this massive growth story. And so that's really exciting. So can I get in literally on the ground floor of a supply chain that is going to be huge over the next 10, 20, 30 years with humanoid robots? And so that's where I get really excited. I think there's a lot of really cool investment opportunities there. Case in point, I said earlier, I think the US government is starting to get some urgency about this. The reason I said that is because they are supporting that supply chain. The Department of Defense poured, I think it was $500 million into a company called MP Materials and also agreed to buy a bunch of stuff from MP Materials. What does MP Materials do? People are like, what is this company? I never heard of it before. MP Materials is a rare earths miner and magnet maker. Rare earths magnets are essential, absolutely mission critical to humanoid robots, because a humanoid robot, think about a human. We have all these joints, right? Our elbows, our wrists, our shoulders, our knees, our ankles. They move in this kind of 360 fashion. You need robots to do that. At their joints, you need them to be able to move like that. So you need torque. You need actuators to do that. In order to actually get that movement, you need to have electrical energy here in the brain, the chip which NVIDIA is making, that needs to be sent down to these actuators and turned into mechanical energy for movement. What turns electrical energy into mechanical energy? Magnets. Magnets do that. And you need a very specific high torque, low weight type of magnet called a rare earth magnet. Rare earth magnets are the most critical building block of humanoid robots. I don't think it's a coincidence that the biggest investment outside of Intel that this administration has made so far is in rare earth magnets. They are supporting the biggest US company mining rare earths in the US, making rare earth magnets in the US, and selling those rare earth magnets to US company. They're supporting that company entirely. That stock's gone from $20 to I think it's around $70 today. Absolutely vertical move there. That's a 3x in a couple months. Those are the sort of moves I think you could see throughout the robo supply chain. MP's the template. It's the first. It will not be the last. There's going to be a lot of other companies in the robo supply chain. The actual actuator makers themselves, you're going to need things called vision chips because these robots are going to be they need vision. They need sensing. They need perception. Sensors themselves. There's going to be a lot of different components that go into this humanoid robot with a lot of stocks that have the potential to follow in MP's footsteps.
So interesting, and clearly something you have done a lot of research on, Luke. I love to hear kind of the technical analysis that you have on these companies and on the actual tech itself. You clearly have a background in that area too. So if you want to learn more about Luke's research, make sure to scan the QR code on the screen right now or click the link we have in the description of this video to get more of the research that Luke and his team are doing, talking about the picks and shovels play, that supply chain for building the robotics story in the US and across the globe. There's a lot of other big players that could be coming from this, and you can find that all in Luke's reports. Luke, thank you so much for your time today. This was a great discussion and an update on Tesla that we haven't had in a while, but also just a great conversation about robotics and what this could mean for the future.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think this is a massive story. If you want to compare it to an analogy, it's a massive asteroid heading towards Earth, and I think a lot of people have their head in the sands, and it's time to pick up and see the asteroid that's about to change the world.
Yeah, very good advice, Luke. Thanks again for your time, and thank you for watching, everyone. Let us know what you think in the comments. Are you looking at other robotics stories right now? Do you think Tesla is the best robotics play right now if you're looking to really get in ahead of the explosive growth this industry could have? We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, happy investing.